I'm Doug from Auden Guitars, and I'm here today with Ben Smith. We're going to be having a bit of a conversation about all of the different body sizes available in the Auden Guitars range, and maybe chat a little bit about what went into the design of those guitars, and a little bit about what differences there are between the body shapes and what that brings to the sound sort of scape of the guitar.
Fantastic. This is the smallest one. This is the parlour size, which is the Emily Rose model. I'm quite familiar with these because I've played, and Emily Rose is my kind of main acoustic guitar for about the last 5 or so years. It's a little bit more dinged than this one is, but I love parlour guitars. I've played parlour guitars since before I was playing Auden guitars, but the Emily Rose is my kind of main one. So I can talk about it a bit because I love parlour guitars, but they do tend to lack low end.
Yep.
But the Emily Rose doesn't. And that is something to do with the design, but I'm not sure quite what.
Okay, so there's a couple of things that we wanted to do. There are sometimes on the smaller bodied guitars, you can end up with a smaller sound.
Yeah.
What we wanted to do was make a little guitar that had a really big voice, and a voice that was dynamically sort of broad as well. So you were able to, you can hit out a chord on it, or you can fingerpick very gently on it, but that sound is going to make it across and make it out into an audience. So one of the things that we did, because the bout of the guitar is constrained by obviously the size constraints of keeping it a small bodied guitar, what we did is we opened up the depth of the body. So this way? Yeah, so this way on an Emily Rose is maybe 5 to 8 millimeters deeper than you would perhaps expect to find on a guitar with that size body. What that does, although it doesn't extend the bracing inside, which is what really adds great bottom end, but what it does instead is it just gives the sound a little bit more room to develop inside. So you get that bigger, slightly more matured or slightly more developed sound coming out of the guitar once the sound's coming out of the sound box. Right,
and I mean it certainly translates. Certainly when you play it, because I've used mine for the last 5 years, and I strum and pick and everything. So, traditionally people think, small guitars are for finger pickers, but actually I use it for everything, and it's great as a strummer. Particularly, I find in like a band context, when you've got if you've got a bass player and a keyboard player and like another guitar player as well, you don't need to take up the full frequency spectrum. So it's something, but it's not lacking in bass though.
I think the other thing to talk about maybe around all of these body shapes is that they're all available in lots of different wood combinations. Yes. And of course those wood combinations are also shaping that sound, what that sound comes out like. So you've got a rosewood back and sides, for example, on that guitar. And that rosewood is going to add a clarity to the bottom end. It's going to give you almost that piano-like plonk on those bass notes. So you're going to get that definition of the note when it comes out. Perhaps more so than on, say, a mahogany back and sides guitar, which is just going to have that slightly rounder, warmer, softer. Both are very good sounds in their own purpose, but both filling a different space.
For the record, I like mahogany best, but it's entirely seasoned to taste, because I know you prefer rosewood. And the Emily Rose is always a cedar top, right? Is that right?
It is a cedar top. We have experimented using a spruce top on it, but we just find, with it being a smaller body, the cedar top just warms it up, just gives a bit of extra depth to the sound.
It's great. I mean, I love it. Yeah, like I say, I've used mine for years for strumming, finger picking, single lead stuff, everything.
You've pretty much worn through yours.
I have worn through mine. It's over there. I can show you, but I won't. It's got a hole in it.
Show it, quick, let's get it.
Yeah, so this is my version. This is my Emily Rose that I've had for the last 5 years. It's obviously a lot more worn. It's on its second set of frets, because I wore the first set out after a couple of years. But this is the mahogany back and side version with a cedar top again. But could do with new strings. Oh, it could really do with new strings.
I love the way that guitar's aged, and it now is sort of, it's earned its stripes, it's earned its polish that you've put. I mean, that was a full satin guitar when you had it, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, this was satin finish. Yeah, it's done. I don't know how many 100 gigs now, but over the last 5 years, it's been to the States. It's been all over the place, and it's never ever let me down. It's great.
And that guitar works for you at a solo gig, at a duo gig, at a full band gig. You're using it.
Yeah, I use
across all of the.
This is my number one acoustic guitar that I use for everything, and then I have I've got a Julia model which we'll come to earlier, which if I want something a bit more hi-fi with a spruce soundboard, and I use that. But this is my number one.
Great,
and I love it.
That's a great link into the Julia. Should we talk about the Julia?
Yeah, let's talk about the Julia.
Okay, so this is a Julia guitar. So this is the next size up from the Emily Rose that we were just talking about. And the idea behind the Julia was to produce a guitar that was still a small body, so it's still convenient, easy to carry around, get to travel with or whatever, but give it that 14 fret accessibility rather than the 12 fret limitation. So a slightly different scale length on there, slightly different string tension, slightly bigger body, slightly bigger sound, and again, available with a rosewood back and sides, with a mahogany back and sides. So there's a number of different models in the range. But this is a Julia. Let's have a listen.
Yeah, the Julia. I mean, as I said, I've got a Julia at home, which is the mahogany back and side version with the spruce top. It's got more. Yeah. Well, let me play it and then we'll talk about it.
So what do you get out of the Julia that you don't get out of the Emily Rose?
Okay, so for me, you call the 12th fret a limitation, which it's different. But because this is a 14th fret rather than a 12th fret, it means that the bridge is shifted forwards, and so you get a kind of different tonality and a different feel to it, I find, with the 14th fret rather than a 12th fret join. The scale length is the same, isn't it?
Yes.
Which I didn't realise for ages because I thought the Julia was longer, but it's just the body that's a bit bigger. For me, the Julia has a little bit more low end.
Yep.
And it's just a bit more kind of sparkly as well, but not too bright, because sometimes, overly bright can be no good. It sits for me in the mix, particularly if I'm recording as a kind of strummer, because it's got a really kind of full sound, but it doesn't take up too much low end. Like sometimes when I would traditionally think of using something like a dreadnought, I'll use the Julia instead because I find it sits really well with other instruments in the mix of a song.
So it has got more low end perhaps than the Emily Rose, because you've got that slightly wider bout, which means we've extended the bracing inside, which gives you that sort of that enhanced bottom end. But again, it's a practical guitar because size-wise it just works. And what we've found is a lot of singer-songwriters go for the Julia because it's a great tool. It's not an overpowering guitar to sit down with and put a song across as a singer-songwriter rather than as well as in a band setting.
It's lovely. Like I said, I've had one I use it a lot for open tunings as well. Actually, I use mine stays in dadgad a lot of the time, which is nice for because it's got the slightly larger body. Yeah, for drop tunings. Gives that kind of a bit more meat in the low register, which is nice. Yeah, I love the Julia.
So this is the Bowman.
Excellent.
Kind of our take, I guess the roots of it are in the sort of orchestra model, traditional orchestra model guitar. But a few differences, a few things that we looked at when we were developing the Bowman to make it a guitar that was perhaps different to just every other guitar in that sort of shape. So the body on a Bowman is quite a bit thinner than perhaps you would expect. And it's quite tapered. So it's much narrower at the shoulder than it is at the bout.
And quite a big difference, isn't it?
Yeah, and the couple of reasons for that. One is that we were looking for a guitar that maybe for electric players might feel a little bit more comfortable, might feel a little bit more of a familiar playing position than a great big arm over the top dreadnought, which can be a little bit unwieldy if you're not always used to playing an acoustic guitar, or if you're swapping between guitars during the course of a gig. But what that also does is it helps give the guitar a lot of front-end presence, and it gets the sound out of the guitar quickly. So what you find with a Bowman is it has a really quite defined sound space. It's not trying to be dynamically everything, but it fits very nicely in a mix if you're recording with it, or if you're sort of playing it as a singer-songwriter on its own. It's got that lovely sort of definition within the guitar.
I think it's a nice finger picker as well for kind of instrumental stuff too. It's got a very, the string separation's really nice.
Yep.
If you're doing, kind of melodic. I guess that's because of the taper, the kind of upper mids, kind of, like you say, they're very present from the off. So the kind of
so the sound isn't going to develop in the sound box perhaps as much as it would on a jumbo or a dreadnought type guitar, because you're going to get that more. So you're going to get that more immediate note coming out of the instrument. Which means it does work great as a finger picker because it's got that immediate response.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is what you're looking for.
I know a lot of guys. Who, I don't play much instrumental stuff, but I know people who do. Yeah, really seek that out. Some people, which is nice, and this has got it in spades actually. The harmonics go forever, which is nice.
But equally well, you can strum with it
it
without becoming overpowering. It's not one of those strummers that overpowers the song by the time you get to the sort of first chorus.
Shall I?
You can, go on. Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't have a overpowering low end.
You don't get that sort of warring building. Yeah, the war building up in the bottom of the guitar. It's got perhaps a slightly thinner, but not thinner in a bad way. It's not a boxy sound. But it's a crisper sound, perhaps.
Yeah, it's like almost like it's got a bit of a kind of high pass filter on it.
That makes it.
Yeah. So which is lovely. I mean, particularly with a band as well. That's going to sit.
Yeah, it sits in a mix. It's not trying to be the bass and the keyboard and the vocalist and the guitar. It's just being the acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
And of course it's comfortable to play because of that narrower body. It sits closer to you. So if you're swapping, say, between an electric guitar and an acoustic guitar, it's going to be a more familiar playing position.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, it is a comfortable one to sit with. I do like. That's why I like small bodies guitars, because they're just kind of wrapped around them.
Should we move on to the Chester?
Yeah, that's the next one up, isn't
it? So the Chester is the next one up. I've got one here.
Have you got one? I'll swap you. Now, I'm somewhat familiar with these because Jimmy plays one, who I play with all the time, and he plays the... Oh, yeah.
So, this is the Auden Chester, and I guess the Chester is probably the guitar that we're known for, maybe more than any other model. We sell more Chesters. It's been a real part of the Auden range right from the very beginning. It was one of the first guitars we launched with. And the idea behind it was to create a great all-rounder, a guitar that you can strum, and it's got everything you want on a strummer, but you can finger pick it. It's got everything you want. Designed specifically with a big, I guess, fat round bottom is the way to talk about it. Which gives the bottom end plenty of time, plenty of opportunity to develop, but also that nipped waist and the smaller rounded shoulders, which get the sound out quickly, give it the presence, give it the front end. So you don't get that sort of wallowing build up within the guitar because they're pushing the sound out, but you do get the real rich bottom end. And the Chester's been, it's been there since day one for us. Yeah, it's the guitar we've sold most of. It's the guitar that we produce the most varieties of. So we make it in the Neo range, we make it in the tobacco range, in the mahogany range, it's in the rosewood range, it's in the maple range, and it's proved its keep in every part, right the way across all the different ranges that we do. And it's also interesting that with artists that have chosen to use Auden guitars, that the Chester is also the most popular model that they've chosen and taken out on the road.
I know that, Well, Jimmy's had his well, since the same time I have my Emily Rose, and yeah, it's a wonderful guitar. He hasn't put quite as many holes in it as I have, but yeah, I love it. I love the Chester, and this one is rosewood with cedar.
Yep.
Right.
Yes.
The maple Chester is one of my favourite guitars.
Very pretty guitar. The
It's
maple
pretty,
Chester.
but I love the maple one.
Yeah.
My father-in-law has one.
He does. That's right. I remember.
He does, yeah. So I mean, it's again, single line stuff, finger picking stuff, strummed. It does it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's got a bit. There's something for everybody in the Chester.
Yeah. So I can't remember what I played at the start. It was kind of finger picking, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Should I strum something so you can hear what it sounds like?
Go on. So from here, I'm getting loads of bottom end, loads of bottom end on that, but although it's a big bottom end, it's also defined because of the rosewood. Yeah. It's got a lot of definition as well, so there's clarity in that bottom end. So when you're putting the bass runs in, they're cutting through really clearly.
And I know that it's, you can. I know Jimmy plays loads of bluegrass on his, and it sounds great.
Right,
as well as and jazz. It does. I know that. We were having an argument earlier because I think all guitars are all-rounders, depending on who's playing them. But this is, generally speaking, I would say, yeah, it is a real all-rounder in terms of the sound you can get out of it without really having to put too much effort into it.
Yeah, if you're going to have a go-to acoustic guitar in the corner of your room, then the Chester is the one to go to because it just can do everything. You can pick it up, you can pick it up and play that sort of melodic finger-picking stuff. You can pick it up and bash out a three-chord wonder on it, or whatever you want to use it for. It fits the bill.
And they record really well. I know.
Which is interesting because the Chester name. So when I started Auden Guitars, I got together a group of different people from all different areas in the music industry, and there was a recording expert, there was a retail expert, there was a gigging expert. Got them all together and sort of said, what's important? And actually the Chester was named after Tom Chester, who was a guy that owns Blank Tape Recording Studios in Sheffield. And he was a great help to me right the way through my sort of music sort of life. And he was telling me what was needed in a guitar to make it a great recording guitar. Right. And a lot of that went into the design of the Chester.
I thought it was Chet Atkins. I thought you named it after Chet Atkins. There we go.
So there you go. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it's lovely. It's one of my favourite models, particularly as I said, the maple one. Not that I'm dropping hints, but. Cool. And what's the next one up? Is it we're not onto the?
Well, we should just do if we've got one in there. We should just do a quick screenshot of the maple Chester there because you're talking about it a lot.
Is that one there?
One there, yeah. I'll pass it over.
Yeah, this is the one.
So then, as we were talking about the maple Chester, here is one that was just happened to be on the wall, and we got really lucky. We were made aware of a parcel of 5A grade, exhibition grade as we call it, maple, and thought we'd better make some guitars out of it quickly while we had the chance to get hold of it. And so we've done a really limited run of Emily Rose, Chester, and also the Grace Jumbo, and they're just so pretty. And we managed also to get some figured mahogany for the necks, which is really rare, really hard to come by, but we managed to find some to pair it with it. Yeah, I mean, they're just beautiful. I don't know if you spin that around to the camera a bit.
So I just did, but I mean, I don't know if you're going to catch it on the camera. You probably won't, but as you move it, like bands of orange light, it's like one of those holographic pictures you get when you're a kid.
It looks almost 3D, doesn't it?
It's like the characters move on it. It's like that. It's brilliant. But but it sounds, that's the most important. I don't care what it looks like, really. I just care what it sounds like, and it sounds incredible. Yeah, I love the maple ones.
It's that hardness of the wood, so you're getting an immediate bounce of a note and getting that sort of sound out there straight away.
Yeah, devastatingly loud as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's a bit of a beast. You've kind of got to tame it a little bit when you're playing it, because certainly when you first get to meet the guitar, because it perhaps is a little bit bigger sounding than you would expect it to be.
Yeah, I love them. But there we go. It's just because it's there and it's my favourite version of the Chester, so There we go. But what's the next size up?
We'll go from that to the Auden.
Auden, cool.
Okay, so this is the Auden, which is slightly different to the other guitars that we've been talking about today because we only make the Auden in one wood combination, and that's mahogany and spruce. And the reason for that is that we think that the mahogany spruce combination on this body shape works particularly well. It's got a big sound, it's got a huge dynamic range, it's got a really sort of happy sparkle or shimmer to the guitar, which makes it great as a strummer, works equally as well as a finger picking guitar. It's kind of a dreadnought for people that don't like dreadnoughts. Yeah. It's not a dreadnought, obviously, but it's got that big bout, so it gives you that big, rich bottom end. You do get a bit of that bottom end build up in the guitar, but it's not quite as big as that sort of dreadnought that can be overpowering.
Yeah, it's not quite, because for me, I think the dreadnought, kind of the typical dreadnought sound, it's got a very pronounced low end, which almost makes it sound like some of the low mids are a bit scooped. Yeah. And this has got which, you know, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but this has got elements of that, but it's not quite so pronounced. Which for me, that's why I tuned it to Dadgad for that little bit at the start, for finger picking and stuff, and for kind of potentially for percussive acoustic guitar, it would be really nice because it has got, you know, you can make the top end sing out, but if you want to drop it down to a low tuning, it's got plenty of grunt to do.
Yeah, and that's partly because it's got such a big bout on it. So your bracing inside is extended quite a bit further than it is on, you know, many other body shapes, and that again enhances that bottom end and allows that bottom end to respond in the way it just did then when you hit it.
That's it. Yeah, and it's, you know, if you want to do that kind of, I'm terrible at percussive guitar, but I imagine for percussive stuff it would be really nice too, because it's, well, the percussive players I know tend to favour a big body with lots of resonance, which this has got in spades. Yeah.
But still a little bit of definition because it's got that nip on the waist over, say, a dreadnought shape, which is a much squarer box.
Yeah, yeah.
So that little nip just helps push the sound back out of the box.
That's right, because it's just, kind of melodic stuff can sing out over the low end, kind of bass things really nicely.
Yes. Which I guess makes it a really good all-rounder.
Yeah, I would say so. But yeah, for me, I always want to play folk on it. But then, so the Colton's the big one, right?
So that is the dreadnought, yeah.
Okay,
so
cool.
where we were just talking about the difference on a dreadnought, if I can find one.
Let's do it.
So this is the Auden Colton, which is where it all started for us. It was the first guitars that we made were Coltons, which is our take on obviously the dreadnought shape, which is probably the most instantly recognisable acoustic guitar shape out there. It's probably the one you'd see most of, and I think if you went to a non-guitar player and asked them to draw an acoustic guitar, the dreadnought's kind of the shape they would draw or would come to mind because it is, I guess, the guitar that's out there the most. And I suppose for us that meant it was a natural starting point. So you've got a big square box on there. You haven't got as much of a sort of nipped waist on the guitar. It's a big sound box, so you get a big noise out of it. Our dreadnought is slightly smaller than a lot of dreadnoughts that are out there, so our Colton is slightly downsized, but it's still a big guitar. It's got a big sound box, it's got a big voice, and it does all the things that you would expect it to do in terms of that bottom end build up in the guitar, that rich layers of sound, sound upon sound as it builds as you're playing it. We make it in two different wood combinations. We have it in the rosewood and spruce, which is,
this one?
It's got that nice sort of crisp sparkle at the top end as well as that nice definition in the
big bass,
big bottom end, and we also do it in the mahogany and cedar version, which is this one here, which has got maybe that slightly more middle ground, slightly more middled sound not that it's not a defined guitar, not that it's not got definition in terms of its sound, and we'll get you to play a bit on both of them, but just a different dynamic, a different voice.
Yeah, I think we'll probably do a different video on this, but for me...
We've just had a big argument about it, haven't we? So we're still smiling.
See what you think. I'll play the same thing on both guitars, but these are the two standard wood combinations.
The two standard wood combinations, yeah.
So this is spruce and rosewood. I'm just going to play the same thing, you can hear the difference, and then you can decide. Spruce and rosewood.
This is mahogany and cedar.
All right. Played it better on that one, but yeah.
But it's a great thing because it's not that one's right or one's wrong or one's better or one's worse.
No,
it's just two different voices.
It's interesting with the same shape and the same construction, same bracing and everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just the woods that are different. It's such a big difference.
Yeah. Made at the same time, these two guitars as well. Yeah. So that it's not that one's been aging for 3 or 4 years or anything like that. Made at the same time, same construction, same drawings, same methods of construction, just different timbers.
And I guess it's the same with any of them. It's like whatever works for you is what works is what's going to whatever works for you is going to be what works the best, isn't it? So,
and that's probably a good place to get to on this video, where we've started with a really small Emily Rose. We've worked our way up through all the different sizes up to the Colton Dreadnought at the end. And it's not that one guitar is the right guitar, one's guitar is the wrong guitar. And people often say to me, well, they'll come into our showroom or we'll meet them at a guitar show or at a retailer, and they'll say, what's the best guitar? What's the right guitar? And there isn't an answer to that. I guess there is. I guess the answer is the one that you feel happiest playing.
Yeah, it's the one,
The one that makes you smile when you pick it up.
Yeah, and that's the reason that my Emily Rose has got so many holes in it, is because it's always the one I grab first if I'm doing acoustic guitar stuff.
So the answer is to come and see us at the showroom, where there's 50 odd Auden guitars on the wall. Start at one end and work your way through and get to the one that makes you smile.